Hey guys, today's video is not going to just be a single story, it's going to be a compilation of stories. I'm going to be trying, along with this video here, to be going for more long-form videos, as per my last community poll thing. You guys voted that you wanted longer-form videos, so I will be attempting at least to do that. I'm probably going to be looking towards Monday and Friday for story compilations for shorter stories, or if I can find longer ones, I'll be doing those on Monday and Friday as well, with the occasional bonus content during Wednesday or Saturday. But without further ado, the first story that I have today is going to be about a D&D group that unwittingly became TikTok stars. So before the pandemic, I was in a tabletop gaming club, and my friend convinced me to join a pre-written beginner's campaign. It was a varied mix of experience levels in this particular group, and I was one of the least experienced. My time there didn't really sell me on the whole tabletop games thing. Most of my group were actually pretty decent, but there were these two annoying players that would do really wacky hijinks. One of these people insisted on this whole side quest just so her character could get a pet chicken that she named Chuck Norris. And no, I'm not joking. Thankfully, the DM was able to incorporate the chicken into an actually fun side quest, but her character and RP style was just grating. This girl also spent a whole lot of time on her phone. I figured that she was just busy texting or something when she had to wait for her turn to roleplay some truly excruciating, quirky moments. My friend and I started coming to the sessions with various substances that we could share once it became clear that we were going to spend half of every session listening to two of the other players try their best to derail the whole dang thing, just because they could. And that accursed chicken emboldened them. Once suitably intoxicated, my friend and I also started derailing the campaign. And we also did some pretty cringeworthy crap. And the DM and the other player told me that they actually liked our crap a lot more than the aforementioned stuff because ours actually let them participate and have fun, instead of listening to two people perform a mediocre sitcom in character. But I still kind of feel bad about it. Then one day, the chicken girl came in and said, "I made us go viral on TikTok! You're welcome!" Which it obviously turned out that she was an aspiring TikTok star, and she had been filming our sessions without our knowledge or consent, and they were getting tens of thousands of views. A lot of them were of my friend, because he's funny, and now a bunch of tweens were in her comments calling us D&D party goals or whatever. My friend actually has a career, and he was freaking out about it. It's very much made us all out to be some sort of attention-seeking loser, saying dumb crap for the camera. And he and I were pretty clearly under the influence in at least one. A few edgy jokes that my friend made were also the type of thing that you might be able to get cancelled on Twitter for, although I'm not entirely certain. They were taken very much out of context, but the risk was there. We talked to her about it, and she got kind of pouty but agreed to take them down. Things were kind of tense after that, because we very obviously stopped talking whenever she had her phone out. And then the pandemic happened, and things just kind of fizzled out. But yeah, now I could conceivably title my memoirs as I was an unwilling TikTok star. And no, I'm not going to press charges on a teenager for being obnoxious. Guys, the only two things I can really think of to say here is firstly, don't record people without their consent, let alone uploading it to some place like TikTok and probably trying to make money off it, or just trying to get internet famous. And secondly, I really do wonder how many games have been killed because of Corona. But that's the end of the first story. This next one up is going to be about a DM that doesn't like being questioned. Alrighty folks, I just got banned, so I can finally share this story. I joined a Westmarches server back in August, and since my joining, I had become one of the most active members in that quiet server. At the time of my joining, the head DM, who we'll call Doug, was somewhat inactive, so I had been playing under what was one of the best DMs of my D&D career. This past month, every DM was taking a break, and the head DM finally returned. I had been excited to finally play one of his games, and immediately signed up for the second one that he was going to run, since I had missed the first one, and I had very little idea of what I was getting into. And a little bit of background info. The server is very combat-based, but the other 3 DMs that I had played with encouraged a good bit of roleplay and didn't stifle us when we tried. So we started the game and things were going okay. Most of us from the group that had played together before, and one of the DM's best friends were there. I thought that it should go smoothly, but oh boy, was I wrong. I can't really work this whole issue in, but any attempts at roleplay were mocked by the DM or outright ignored. Our main objective of the game was to go through a maze and find a rose for a supposed Eladrin, and things were going well at the start. Or, well, it was the fact that it was hardly a maze, just us magically finding the right direction. But we got to the center with minimal issue, and there was a knight made out of bush and armor, and we had to duel him and a couple of other opponents to get to the rose. And this is where the problem started to arise. Things were going well for us, save for me being feared as far away as possible for most of the combat. When I was finally able to join in and get anywhere close, Doug had a small fit of anger over people asking which monsters were damaged. We were in a heavily cornered and shadowed Roll20 map where one square could make the difference of seeing everything or nothing. It made things almost impossible to keep track of unless your token was right next to everything. His fit discouraged me from even wanting to try to join the combat, since even with me being only 10 feet away, I couldn't see anything. I didn't know where anything was, let alone who was damaged. Thankfully, it wouldn't matter, as the DM realized that his all-powerful knight was losing, and in a small tantrum, he huffed and puffed and had the knight go and hide with the line, "This fight is no longer fair." It was shocking in the moment. He blamed us for being too powerful, and the other DMs for giving us decent weapons. And all of this was mid-game. The icing on this cake ended up being the worst case of railroading that I have ever encountered. After all of the huffing and puffing stopped, he took a moment to say that midway through the battle, my pet Locust, gifted to me by the Eladrin, had transformed into an imp and destroyed the rosebush. We were all shocked, not able to even try and do something about it, because it was already over. And out of the woodworks came the Eladrin. Apparently, an evil bad guy. And from the other side came a wood elf army, who started attacking him. The DM made it clear that we could do nothing without dying, unless it was leaving, proving this point by having the wood elf queen fly in on a dragon and do combat with the Eladrin. But it was no use because he's throwing infinite nature at the army and winning. This is where our second tantrum happened. And, oh boy, it was a doozy. Doug's friend joked in the Roll20 chat, "To not mess with the DM's pet, haha." And Doug flipped his lid, yelling about disrespect and how the game ends here, with no one going out of their way to try to calm him down. Even his own friend was startled by the outburst, and he threatened to end the game there and then, and how he had been disrespected the entire night. Eventually, he was convinced to take a break, and for 30 minutes, it was an awkward silence as he stayed deafened and muted. Most of us exhausted, having started around 6:45, and it now being sometime after midnight. He eventually returned, and it was just non-stop talk of his ultra-powerful BBEG, until we all agreed to just GTFO. It's been a couple of weeks since then, with no one stepping up to say anything for fear of being banned. And now he's posted for another game. He expressed disappointment why no one was joining, and I told him why. And the fears were right. I'm banned now, and I can finally share this story. Well guys, this particular DM ticks off a couple of boxes on the crappy DM bingo checklist. You can't question him. and if you do, you're gone. The entire game is based around combat. The story is just extra fluff. You can't RP. And he has a complete lack of self-awareness. It kinda sucks though that this one guy was the bad egg in what apparently was a whole Discord full of actually decent DMs and players. I don't know if the OP actually has any of the other people's contact information, but I really feel like they should have just gotten everyone's contact information, made a new server, and just left this guy to his own devices and to never be spoken to again. But that's the end of the second story. Now on to the last one, which is a compilation of stories in of itself even, but all of them being from the same OP. Over the course of the last year, I played a lot of one-shots with random people on Roll20, as I had more free time. Some went well, some didn't. And because of this, I've got a few stories to share. They're short enough that I thought I would just bunch them all together to save some time. And just a little quick edit. Just to clarify that I'm not condemning all online groups or quick start one-shots. For every unpleasant experience, I can bring up another positive or neutral one. Don't take this as a reason to not try out one-shots with random people, at least once in a while. You get to meet a lot of people. Some of them will be crap, but others will be great. Give almost everyone a chance, and know when to walk away. And just a minor warning for some of the stuff found in these stories, such as creeper behavior, sexual harassment, casual racism, absurd behaviors, and rule for the not for me syndrome. Story the first, in which a bard got molested. I joined a group with my tiefling lore bard for a two-shot adventure that had a fun premise. There was a half-elf ranger, a half-elf rogue, a halfling cleric, and a half-orc barbarian. I know there's a lot of halves. It was kind of funny. And, to note, by chance, I was the only player playing a character of the opposite gender. We were good, until the ranger, who is played by another girl, started pretty heavy-handedly hitting on my bard. Now, my bard was okay with that at first, but as the adventure progressed, the ranger's behavior put him off more and more, and me out of character. She was consistently rude to NPCs that he was trying to get information out of, and trying to pick unnecessary fights when I was trying to avoid them, and being extremely hostile to NPCs who seemed to like him. She also killed his microgriffin familiar for laughs, and only half-heartedly apologized for it, and just was a general try-hard edgelord. I will say that the GM was pretty good about handling this, and handed out consequences for this type of behavior that our party unfortunately had to deal with. And at some point, the cleric threatened the ranger with no healing if she screwed us over. The worst happened while we were resting in an inn on the road between a town and a fortress that we had a protected delivery for. By that point, my bard's opinion of the ranger had soured considerably, and he no longer responded to her overtures, except to firmly tell her that she brought this on herself. I played my bard as a savvy and cheeky, but generally chill and wholesome dude who might be attracted to anybody as long as they're just basically a decent person. He straight up told her that her behavior really put him off, and the player got extremely salty. She said, and I quote, "That's bullcrap! He's a bard! He's supposed to always be horny!" Which made me and the cleric very uncomfortable. She got pushy about it, even though the GM wanted to move along. And then she declared her character put her hand down my bard's pants. The GM tried to shut her down, but she insisted that it was going to be funny, and unfortunately, the barbarian and the rogue thought so too. The ranger, without prompt from the GM, who was furiously messaging me with apologies while trying to shut things down, rolled a strength check to subdue my bard. And rolled really, really well. My poor 8-strength bard had no chance of beating that, and she tried to launch into what she would do to my character, until the GM informed me that this constituted as an attack. So, being a tiefling with a flame of Phlegethos feet, I hellish rebuked. She started to instantly screech about how I was ruining it for her, and then the GM muted her. apologizing profusely to me. Unfortunately, this halted the two-shot after a single session, as the ranger sent me a bunch of abusive messages on Discord before I blocked her. The cleric said that this put him off one-shots, and the rogue and the barbarian just kind of ghosted the group. Story the second. Things that I have learned while playing a female tabaxi monk. Good lord. I seem to run into all the weirdos whenever I decide to play Juju. She is my most light-hearted character, an affectionate homage to classic kung fu movies and anime memes, hence her moniker, Weebcat. She's a short, skinny tabaxi based on the Somali breed of house cat, given drunken master and built for speed. For context, I play Juju with a funny accent, and a very small and specific set of feline traits, such as liking to nap in the sun, or climbing to tall places, and getting distracted by quickly moving objects and creatures. She's also fastidiously clean and sometimes hisses when she's angry or scared, and purrs when she's pleased. She also likes to eat all the carbs, and drinks like a fish. But man, over the course of several one-shots, she has seen a few things. For one, there was that guy who got upset that I described Juju as very feline in appearance, and not as an anime-style cat girl. He got further upset when I clarified that Juju has practically no breasts, because she's just that lean and binds up well. And I don't mean that he was just salty. He complained for 15 minutes straight about it, while the GM was making some changes to a combat encounter due to spontaneous decisions of the party, and even the GM told him to can it. But he didn't end up kicking the guy because I think they were friends in real life, and one of the players even snapped at him. For two, there was this other guy who wanted to play a homebrew kitsune sorcerer in an Asian setting game, and as an aside, for all of his faults, the GM did put a lot of work into the setting, so I give him kudos for that. And this guy decided to be as creepy as possible about it. He described her as a painfully stereotypical anime waifu with a tiny waist and a huge bosom, and an overly elaborate dress, and flip-flopped between putting down my tabaxi for not being cuter and flirting with her. Which, given that Juju's kind of dense, went right over her head. I was getting significantly more uncomfortable with how explicit his descriptions about how his character acted were. He described her spellcasting as, well, orgasmic. She also poured cream in a bowl and offered it to Juju, by putting it on the floor and going, pss 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 pss, here kitty, which pissed off Juju because she finds that kind of thing super offensive. And he was extremely salty when Juju snapped at his character and started avoiding her entirely. The GM let all the other weird crap go on because I guess that it was just funny to him. I didn't play with this group again after that session. For three, there was that girl who insisted I was not playing Juju properly because tabaxi act way more cat-like than I was playing Juju, and kept trying to correct me. Her paladin was also dead convinced that Juju was a liar and a thief because all tabaxis are liars and thieves. Incidentally, the drow rogue always quipped, "Am I dead to you?" at those comments, which I found funny. She also hated the accent I was using for Juju, even though the GM and all the others were fine and even amused by it. I actually ran it past them all before we started, and she said she was okay. Then. But midway through the session, she just started to go off about it, saying that she wanted to play D&D, not listen to some frickin' Middle Eastern immigrant talking funny. Which, yikes. I speak English with a Canadian-ish accent. Juju's accent is pure theater. The GM got pretty pissed off at her for this comment, and told her to apologize so that we could move on, and told her that if she repeated that kind of stunt, she was out. She refused to apologize, saying that it was her right to say that because freedom of speech. And when I informed her that I was in fact Greek, living in Greece, She just said,
"Same difference."
As an aside, please don't say that to any Greek. It's actually offensive. But fortunately, the GM kicked her then and there. And lastly, for number 4, in yet another game, I was forced to duel another player, even though I had stated multiple times that I wasn't comfortable with PvP, and the GM had said,
"If anything makes you uncomfortable, let me know."
But when I said I wasn't okay with it, the GM overruled it, saying that
"It'll be fun."
The challenger, the half-orc barbarian. The cause? He insisted that by tradition of his clan, a man who dueled and beat a woman got to claim said woman for his wife. And the GM rolled with it.
He said that it was interesting.
The other players agreed, and I said nope, and just quit that game faster than Juju's top running speed. So, there we go. Sorry if this was a bit long, but these have been piling up for a while, and I wanted to get them off my chest. Well guys, that's quite a few stories, so I'll start off in chronological order here. For the first story, while the GM did allow the player to use Hellish Rebuke and have some agency there, I think the DM should have just moved or kicked the player from the game or the call right then and there. If you have to actively start yelling over a player who is refusing to listen, even though they were told no, they really aren't worth keeping. For the first Juju story, if you're that sad of a person that you're going to try to dictate what another player's character looks like, when you yourself are a player and not the DM, because of your awful fetish, you might need to get a new hobby. For the second Juju story, the only thing I can really say is, well, at least the OP didn't stick around for the train wreck. And if you find that kind of crap funny, and you let it persist because of that, well, your sense of humor is garbage. For the third Juju story, yikes. But that's all I have to say is, yikes. And for the last Juju story, the fourth one, if you're a DM and your player is telling you that they are uncomfortable with something, but you're trying to force them to do it anyway, you're a dick. Well guys, that's it for this story compilation. Hopefully you enjoyed at least one of these stories, and let me know what you guys think of the stories in the comments. But, as always, have a good one.